Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. What did I just watch? But before I get into my review, if you're new to this channel, hello and welcome. I summarize and review the latest Serkan Kapımı episodes, say what I like, what I didn't like, what I think might happen next. If you like these kinds of videos, like, comment, share, but most importantly subscribe so we can meet on a weekly basis. As always, let's talk a little bit about the side storylines before we dive into the Eda and Serkan storyline. In this episode, the side storylines kind of dominated, but at the same time not really. So all we got was Aydan and Ayfer kind of starting to fight for Chef Alexander's attention, and they're kind of falling for him being kind of oblivious, seeing them as friends, then him inviting both of them to the restaurant and have dinner with them, but they think that there's something special, so they prepare. They're like, oh my god, it's going to be a date, just the two of us, and then both of them are there. It was really hilarious, and also to see that both of them got him the same present, like this tower. So yeah, that's kind of the whole Aydan and Ayfer storyline. Then we have Engin and Pugul. Engin being a mess once again, Pugul having a mental breakdown, seeing how messy it is. Then because they were so productive at the company, Ferit kind of suggests that all of them should go somewhere celebrate, and Engin suggests them to come over at their place. Pugul is panicking because she doesn't like dirt. She doesn't want that people see that it's messy in her house. Also, she doesn't know what to cook because she doesn't know how to cook, so it's kind of a dilemma for her. And then when all of them go inside, she doesn't like that they all have their shoes on. Then her father calls and we get some information about him. So he is very controlling over her, so he really wants to know everything she does. She has to report to him what she's doing. So when the father hears Ceren, Ferit, Erdem and Melek outside, Pugul is kind of covering up, saying that it's the TV, and also she tells him that she's still getting to know Engin, so the father doesn't know that Pugul actually married Engin and he wants to meet up with Engin. So yeah, I do think that the writers are kind of holding back on the father to kind of push him in when there's no story left. That's kind of all that happened. On the Ceren and Ferit front, nothing happened at all. They were there but not really furthering their storyline. Then we have Balcha, which surprised me that she wasn't really in the focus of this episode. So the next day after the prison, which I'm going to talk later about, she makes breakfast because she's still staying at Aydan's place. Serkan stayed there as well, and in the morning she prepared this whole breakfast blah blah blah, but he didn't touch any of it. She was kind of rubbing it in Eda's face, being like, well, I prepared breakfast blah blah blah, but Serkan is shutting her up and being like, well, I didn't touch any of it because I have a special diet blah blah blah. And you could really see that Eda was really proud when he said that. And yeah, Balcha didn't really do much in this episode except for rubbing stuff in Eda's face, being like, well, Serkan was really helpful with the robbery last night and I was so concerned and I was sleeping over blah blah blah, and he's such a nice guy and a gentleman and he cares for me. I really like that Eda wasn't really impressed by her statement, so this whole interaction was really sarcastic, which I really like. And I do think that that's kind of the only positive thing that I can say about Eda in this episode, because she was a mess. I mean, I don't critique her acting like Hande's acting because it is great acting, but I do critique the writing kind of because Hande is only doing what's written. So the writers are, I don't know how to say without sounding harsh, but they turned Eda into a hypocrite, into once again somebody who constantly screams, whereas she could have just talked quietly and just calmly explained everything. But no, she was screaming all over the place, but I'm going to talk about that later. What surprised me in this episode was that because Serkan landed in prison, Balcha was kind of questioning the old lady if she's behind it, and the old lady was like, what? Of course not. It kind of showed me that Balcha is not really involved in everything the old lady has planned. And then we have the prince. At first I was like, you're not hard to look at, you seem nice. And then when he sees Ada for the first time and the old lady is introducing them, there's this music happening and slow motion and everything, so you can really see that he's kind of falling for her or just liking how she looks. And I was like, okay, kind of makes sense, the old lady wants to set him up with Ada, blah blah blah. So I wasn't really surprised to see that scene. So we find out that his mother is actually from Istanbul. That's why he can speak Turkish quite well. He's basically here because Serkan was in prison. The news got out, the tenants or whatever, they dropped like flies. They cancelled everything with art life, so now they don't have big projects to kind of lure them back in. So Ada, I do think that she went to the old lady being like, well, because it's your fault, you ruined everything, now come and get a big client, because otherwise I'm not doing what you want, kind of telling her but not really telling her. So the old lady comes up with the prince. The prince wants to settle in Istanbul, apparently wants to build a new mansion. But then when we see him in his hotel room, I believe, his assistant says that it seems that we will stay here for longer, and he says yes, it seems so. So I was like, okay, so this wasn't really planned for him to stay that long. And then they carry a huge portrait in, but the portrait is covered. But I'm going to talk about that later because my oh my, that picture. Anyways, back to him wanting this project and wanting to build a mansion. So Serkan is kind of gathering everybody, being like, okay, Ada is doing the landscaping, we're doing the house, blah blah blah. So they present it to him. The prince is satisfied with the project, and we also have him and Ada looking at the land, and there he says that his mother died and now he wants to kind of honor her legacy because she wanted a house there. And then they're planting a tree, where I'm like, how can you plant a tree on a plot of land without even knowing where everything goes? Because what if you're building something there? But okay. So then Ada was freezing, and at that time I still liked him. I was like, okay, he's being a gentleman, he just wants a mansion built, he fancies Ada. I mean, who wouldn't? She's a pretty girl. I thought it was kind of adorable for him to give her his coat. Then the old lady comes. He tells the old lady and Ada that he would like to have dinner with the old lady, with Ada and Serkan. So yeah, I'm going to talk about that dinner later, but that's kind of all that happened with him. So yeah, I do think that we can move on to the Ada and Serkan storyline, where the old lady is sprinkled in. So we start off with everybody being at the police station waiting to get some news from Serkan, and the charges are bribery and faking something. I don't remember exactly, but the old lady was also there. As soon as they heard the charges, Ada went to the old lady being like, it's all you, blah blah blah, and she's like, I don't play games, especially with you, kind of deflecting and being like, I have nothing to do with this. But when Serkan is finding out about the charges and everything, and that he might end up in prison, he's kind of angry and frustrated, and that's when it kind of starts for him to suspect the old lady. Then we have the old lady talking to Ada, being like, well, if the people are going to find out about Serkan and his charges, the company will suffer from the consequences. And Aydan gets really angry because she cares about Serkan, but the old lady apparently only cares about business. And then we have the old lady being like, I just want to make sure that my partner is alright, and then telling Ada that she wouldn't harm the company on purpose. And I was like, okay, so who was it then? So then Jagan tells everybody the charges, and Ada goes to the old lady. Ada is being like, what do you want? Kind of showing that she's close to giving in to what the old lady wants, and then the old lady wants to talk to her. Then we also see Balcha going with Aydan because Serkan told Aydan about the robbery. So Aydan is like, okay, you can sleep at our place. And when they're at home, Aydan gets really angry at the old lady being like, well, she and her helper can go, blah blah blah, because she's kind of suspecting the old lady. And you could really see Balcha being so uncomfortable listening to everything. Oh, and also later in the episode we see Aydan kind of talking to Balcha and asking for help, because she's like, well, can you do a favor for me and Serkan, blah blah blah. And Balcha is like, of course I can do everything for Serkan. But then when she hears that Aydan wants Eda and Serkan back, she's like, oh, I don't know about this, blah blah blah. So kind of backtracking. Then we see Eda and the old lady talking, the old lady showing Eda the news articles that will be published the next day about Serkan being in prison, blah blah blah. Eda is panicking, getting really angry at the old lady and asking the old lady, what do you want? Because the old lady is like, I would do everything for Serkan to stay in prison, blah blah blah. And the old lady is once again blackmailing Eda, telling her to break up with Serkan, because when she sees that she broke up with Serkan, she, the old lady, will make sure that Serkan will get out of prison ASAP. Then Eda goes back to the police station, is screaming around, and I was like, girl, please, can you just explain your situation? Don't scream around, because Serkan was already in his cell. She kind of gets in there because she was screaming way too much for the police officers. She goes inside, then asks him if he's alright, and I felt so bad for Serkan, because even though he was imprisoned kind of, he still made sure that she's alright and making her feel alright, and then him telling her that he loves her more than anything. And I was like, God. And I was waiting for Eda to say something, but all she did was nod and then go away. And I was like, girl, at least give the man some hope and tell him you love him too. But then we see her at home kind of hugging or clutching the bracelet she got from him in her hand and trying to fall asleep. Then we see her by the fountains, what we saw in the trailer, them talking about freedom, blah blah blah, him proposing, her saying yes. And I was like, okay, wait, this doesn't make any sense. And then I was like, this has to be a dream, because he was proposing, she said yes, and there was a kiss. I was like, this can't be real. And I was right, it was a dream. Oh no, something else happened before that. I'm really sorry. So after she goes from Serkan, she goes back to the grandma's place, says, what do you want, blah blah blah. She gets really angry. Then the old lady says that she wants revenge for everything that happened. So apparently something more happened, something deeper happened than we know. So I'm really interested to find out why she's so hurt. I mean, of course she lost a child, that's tragic enough, but to me it seems like there's something more. I don't know what, but I do have a feeling that not only the death of her child is the reason for everything, but something else as well, because she keeps telling Eda, if you'd know the truth you wouldn't stay in that company, blah blah blah. So something has happened that we don't know. And then Eda kind of agrees to it. So the old lady tells Tahir to get Serkan out of prison, and when Serkan gets out he immediately calls Eda, but she's not picking up. And I was like, girl, this was your moment for you to explain everything to him, because you could have said to him, let's meet up, I need to tell you something. But no, hypocrite Eda is kind of shining through, and we will see more of her. Then we have this whole dream sequence happening, then Balcha making breakfast, then we see the old lady telling Tahir to spy on Eda, to tell her everything she does, where she's going, blah blah blah. Then we see Eda telling the girls the whole truth, and I was like, if you can't tell the girls, why can't you just tell Serkan? I mean, he's the one who's involved in everything. But I really do hope that Melek will spill the beans and tell Serkan everything, because she's the only hope I have. Because it seems to me like after watching this episode that Eda won't tell him the truth. So when Eda and the girls go away, Tahir is following them. Serkan knocks on Eda's door, kind of. Ayfer opens, is sending him away, being like, well, if Eda doesn't want to see you, I can't let you in, she's not here anyways, I can't tell you where she went, blah blah blah. But at the same time you could really see that she doesn't like to say all of those things, because she feels sorry for Serkan for once. I do think that she started to like him because she can really see that he cares for Eda and he's not pushing his boundaries, because he really changed. And I mean, in this episode you could really see that whenever he wanted to talk to Eda, she hung up on him or didn't talk to him, but he didn't really push push to be like, I want to talk to you, let's talk, blah blah blah. He respected her boundaries and being like, okay, if you don't want to talk now, I accept that. Even though he really needed to talk to her, be close to her, because that's all he needed in that moment. But she ignored it. Oh, then we also have Melek, Erdem and Layla kind of interrogating Tahir, finding out some information about him. And it seems to me that he starts to fancy Melek. And I don't know why, but maybe we will see more of them together. And I really do hope that he won't get information from Melek, but Melek informations from him about the old lady, because that would be amazing. Anyways, then we have this whole meeting about their projects, blah blah blah. Eda comes in, and after the meeting, Serkan wants to talk to Eda because he sees and feels that she's hiding something from him, so he really wants to find out. But the old lady is like, Eda, I want to talk to you after your talk here, so kind of reminding her, do your job but nothing more. And Eda is giving him nothing, not really saying anything, being like, oh, I'm fine, blah blah blah, but he's not really buying it. And I'm like, girl, this is the same thing that happened a couple of episodes back when he was hiding the fact that he knows that Abtikane was behind the wall collapsing on your parents, and then you got really angry at him for not telling you from the beginning and being like, I would have forgiven you and we would have made a plan and went through with it, blah blah blah, together. And I'm like, why can't you just do the same thing for him for once? Because she's always talking so big, I would have forgiven you, we would have done it together, blah blah blah. But why is she not doing it with him right now? Because it's exactly the same situation, just reversed. So I'm like, Eda is such a hypocrite in this episode, and I was like dying on the inside. Then we have him kind of ordering food and a lot of strawberries, and then they have the strawberry conversation. I didn't understand this whole conversation, so if anybody knows, please let me know in the comments. But yeah, it didn't really seem relevant, maybe because it's strawberries and it's kind of their thing, but other than that. So when the old lady is telling Eda and Serkan the news that she got a big fish, the prince, Serkan is then asking Eda if he can trust the old lady, because he really doesn't like her, he doesn't trust her. And I mean, there was a time like when they had this huge meeting and he was like, well, I'm suspecting somebody and I have a suspicion who might have been behind me landing behind bars. And then the old lady is like, well, who do you suspect? And then Serkan is like, you. Everybody is really shocked. I was like, oh my god, I love this. But then he's like, you and I might have a tendency, like might have somebody inside. Then what I didn't really understand, when all of them were working on the projects for the prince, Serkan went to Eda and was like, well, do you want to work in my office at the project? And then she's like, no, I'm fine here. And he was kind of begging her with his eyes, but she's like, no, I'm fine here. Girl, he wants to talk to you. Why can't you just understand? Oh, what I forgot to say, we got some news on Abtikane. So apparently he got arrested in the Bahamas because he was caught with counterfeit bills or something like that. And now Serkan is kind of worried about his father. And then we see the old lady showing the article to Eda, and I'm like, so you're behind this as well? And then she tells Eda, don't mess with me, I have contacts everywhere. We already know you're a very powerful old lady, but just stop. I don't know. This episode, it frustrated me a lot. It's not that I didn't like it, it just frustrated me, and it seems to me that it's more like a transitional episode to the new kind of storyline. It frustrated me because Eda is hiding everything from Serkan, her not really fighting against the old lady trying to show off her power. Then we also have Melek cutting her hair, so I don't know what's up with that, but yeah, she cut her hair. And then we have the dinner. So we have the old lady whispering to Eda to finally break up with Serkan. So the old lady is kind of distracting the prince from the conversation that Eda and Serkan are going to have. And then Serkan is asking Eda what she was whispering with the old lady, and Eda is deflecting, being like, well, we talked about Eiffel. Girl, like, can't you see the pain in his eyes? This scene killed me, seeing him like that. Serkan is like, what is happening? Please don't run away. And then Eda starts being like, well, don't you see it? We won't succeed. My grandma was right, blah, blah, blah. We can't have a relationship. We're not great for each other. And I was like, oh my god, girl, with every word you tell him more, you're digging yourself in a bigger hole. I mean, he even told you that he's a person that a lot of people kind of leave behind and abandon, and he feels abandoned, and that's what you're doing. You had your chances to tell him the truth, because Tahir was not in the office spying on you or listening to you, so you could have told him, but you chose not to. Why? Because you're a hypocrite, because you wanted for Serkan to tell you everything from the beginning, but you're not doing the same. And then we have Serkan being like, but we love each other, and then she's like, well, love can't make the past disappear. And then he's so sad because once again she brings up the past, and I'm like, girl, why are you doing this? Why are you hurting him? And then her being like, yeah, everybody was right about it. I mean, you could kind of see her being sad but still playing strong, and then him being like, on New Year's Eve I saw the passion, and she's like, it was a mistake. Girl, like, you're 100 meters down. Seriously, you can't come up that easily from that hole in front of Serkan's eyes. You can't do this. You have to work majorly for him to want you back. Like, you have to be on your knees. And then him telling her, well, I tried to change for you for the last couple of weeks. Is this really that easy for you to break up? And then her being like, don't think that it was easy for me. And I was like, girl, it seems like it was, because and then Serkan is like, okay, I'm going to make it easy for you. You're right, there's nothing between us. And then Eda starts crying and kind of begging him with her eyes not to break up with her. And I'm like, girl, it's too late. Like, you hurt him, you stabbed him in his heart, opened up the old wound because he changed for you. He became a better man because of you. You could have been such a dream team in this fight against the old lady, but no, you're being a hypocrite. I mean, you could have worked as a team, kind of fake this whole conversation just so the old lady sees it, but still them two being together. Like, I mean, you could have done so many things, but you chose not to. And then Serkan says, thank you, Eda Yıldız, and goes. And then Eda is kind of looking after him, telling the grandma she wants to go as well. And then the prince stays there because it's his place. When Serkan goes, I was like, okay, the episode is over. But no, no, no. The prince goes to the portrait, and I was like, okay, now we see maybe he's the lost son of somebody. Maybe he has a connection to the old lady, who knows. And then he takes the sheet or the cloth off of it, and we see a woman that looks like Eda, like a portrait of him, and a woman that looks like Eda, and him being like, Esma, I won't let you go again, or I won't lose you again. And I was like, what a creep. Like, I was so creeped out seeing that portrait. I was like, what? Like, is this her twin? Like, who in... I mean, ooh, okay. That was the end. Thank God we got a trailer, but apparently I have some theories. That lady looks like Eda, is called Esma. What if Eda has a twin? I mean, that would be really far-fetched. But yeah, he's a creep. Now it makes sense why he looked at Eda like that, because he thought he's seeing his Esma. The way he said it, and him being like, well, I'm not going to lose you again. It seems to me that he was kind of abusive towards Esma, and Esma kind of ran away from him. I don't know. And then the trailer. I mean, seriously, are we doing this whole jealousy thing again? Serkan is having dinner with Balcha, and Eda is having dinner with the prince, and both of them are at the same restaurant. So then Serkan is getting jealous of the prince. Eda is getting jealous of Balcha. Balcha loves it. Then the prince asks Eda for a dance. Serkan gets angry, punches the prince. I mean, he deserves it. Then we see Aydan and Ayfer fighting some more over Chef Alexander. Then we see Eda kind of spying on the old lady, seeing the old lady giving a man an envelope, and her, like, Eda taking pictures of it, and then her also taking something from a safe. I don't know, maybe the old lady's safe. I mean, I like the story so far, except for a couple of episodes that were like meh, and this episode is kind of meh as well. But I kind of understand it because I've seen so many Turkish series, so I understand that there can't be always love and passion all the time, and this is a transitional episode. I don't like the fact, like, I am feeling so bad for Serkan because he's hurting real bad. I feel so sorry for him because another person abandoned him. And then we have Ada starting to be a hypocrite, and I'm like, girl, like, seriously. A couple of episodes back you say what you wanted Serkan to do, but then you do the exact same thing what he did. Is there anything else? I hope I said everything. I hope I mentioned everything. I hope I didn't forget anything. But if you still like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this episode. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Ring that bell to be notified whenever I post something, and I will see you next time. Bye!